Trump warned Friday that limited strikes on Iran are possible. The president is pressuring Iran's government to dismantle its nuclear program. The warning comes as the United States ramps up its firepower in the Middle East. On Friday, the USS Gerald Ford aircraft carrier and 3 other warships entered the Mediterranean Sea. There are currently 13 U.S. Navy vessels in the Middle East, including another carrier, the USS Abraham Lincoln. It is the largest military buildup in the region since the Iraq War in 2003. For more, we're joined from Washington by CBS News national security contributor Samantha Vinograd. Sam, good morning.
Good morning.
So how close are we to military action against Iran?
Well, with the arrival of these additional military assets, Vlad, the president now has maximum optionality when it comes to deciding whether, when, and how he wants to conduct a strike against Iran. He now has the option to not just launch strikes into Iran, but also ostensibly to ensure that to the best extent possible, U.S. forces, U.S. personnel in the region are protected if Iran chooses to retaliate. So we are much closer to war than we were before, and the president is much better prepared to launch not just limited strikes, but a more extensive and prolonged military campaign that could have real repercussions for the American people.
So, Sam, Iran is saying that they're working on finalizing a deal to propose to the U.S. Is there really a diplomatic off-ramp here?
There may be a diplomatic off-ramp, Adriana, but the timelines may just be off. I was involved in the early days of the Iran nuclear deal under President Obama. That deal took more than 20 months to negotiate, and President Trump has given a very short timeline for these negotiations. So what it's really going to come back to is whether the president's team assesses that Iran is actually committed to these negotiations, whether Iran is committed to giving up its nuclear stockpile, which is something it hasn't been open to in the past. And that's normally an intelligence community assessment, something that President Trump has in the past personally tried to decipher.
Sam, we know that with all those military assets in the region, that a strike package would cripple Iran. But the question becomes, to me, what happens after you've struck Iran? If there is regime change in the cards, what does that look like?
Well, Vlad, Iran may feel very far away to the American people, but there's certainly repercussions for Americans themselves. On the one hand, Iran will retaliate. They have the largest and most diverse ballistic missile stockpile in the region. They will likely try to hit U.S. bases, U.S. personnel. They've demonstrated both the intent and capability to strike Americans abroad throughout their history. At the same time, they could try to close a waterway known as the Strait of Hormuz, which could send oil prices much higher. That could impact the price at the pump as we head into the spring and summer. And so that could have very real implications for the American people, even if there's not an effort at Iranian regime change.
Sam, as our viewers remember, when the U.S. struck Iran's nuclear facilities last summer, the president said they were completely obliterated. What is then the state of the threat from Iran?
Well, President Trump's own team does not agree that they were completely obliterated. His own national security strategy says they were significantly damaged. But here's what we do know. We do know that the American strikes did damage some of Iran's nuclear enrichment facilities and a research facility. But we also know that Iran still has a stockpile of what's known as highly enriched uranium. That's material, if enriched further, could be used to break out to a bomb. We also know that Israeli efforts did successfully eliminate some of Iran's top nuclear scientists, so their intellectual capital has suffered. So the question now is, where is their nuclear stockpile? Are they trying to get more of the equipment needed to enrich more uranium? And do they have the capability still to engage in what's called weaponization, actually making a weapon? And the million-dollar question, Adriana, is, do they want to break out to a bomb? And that is going to underline the conversation about whether Iran is committed to negotiations or not, or if they're just biding time.
All right, Samantha Vinograd, thank you so much.